I fear that we as a country are drowning in a sea of debt. The deficit is the issue that motivates me to run for office. So we think we have a really good practical chance of bringing more liberty-minded people to Washington, and we really think it's going to happen. I think one of the things, and this is an undercurrent in the Tea Party movement and some of the other movements, is that people are really upset that their congressmen vote on bills that are 1,100 pages thick and don't read them. There is legislation, and I will support it and introduce it, that says you have to sign a document and say you've read the bill before you vote on it. I think these are reform-minded issues that bring new people to our movement. We sometimes think we're getting a change. You know, we elected a change in 1994. We elected Republicans to Congress for the first time in 40 years, and they were elected on the Contract with America. The Contract with America had many good things in it, but it didn't take long for them to forget about it. By 1996, they had a new strategy, and actually it was a Republican from Texas who coined the name for this strategy. It was called the K Street strategy. And K Street is where all the lobbyists live. All their businesses are on K Street. And this particular Republican from Texas went around and said to the Republicans in-house, we will stay in power if we do like the Democrats did. We go down to K Street and we get the money in buckets from the lobbyists. We give them what they want and we will stay in power. Power became more important than the principle of what we wanted to do, to bring limited government, to balance budgets, to bring responsible constitutional government.
This is Rand Paul here visiting in Austin, Texas, running for the U.S. Senate from Kentucky. Glad to be with you today. I'm an ophthalmologist. I do eye surgery and have practiced for 16 years in Bowling Green. I came to Kentucky because my wife grew up in Kentucky and is from a small town near there called Russellville. For many years I've been involved with the taxpayer movement. I headed up a group in Kentucky called the Kentucky Taxpayers United, and we rated the state legislature on their tax and spending votes, and we produced a scorecard so people could see how their legislators were voting. We also promoted a pledge called the Taxpayer Pledge, where candidates would sign saying that they promised not to vote to raise taxes. I've already signed that pledge for my campaign. In fact, I've gone one step further. I've said that I pledge not to vote for any budget that's not balanced, whether it's a Republican budget or a Democrat budget. I think we should decide things not on whether they're a Republican or Democrat, but whether they're good or bad. And I think our budget being so far out of whack is bad for the country and will lead to repercussions on all of us as we go to the grocery store and pay higher and higher prices. I believe that government is best that governs least. I think that government has grown so large that we're in danger of losing our freedoms. I think the debt has grown so large that we're drowning in a sea of debt. And if we don't do something, I think the problems will be imminent and serious. I think the problems with the debt are not only that our kids and our grandkids will be paying for the debt, the problem is that we're going to be paying for it through serious inflation. We doubled the monetary base last year, and when that money leaks out through the banking system into the economy, my fear is that we're going to have significantly higher prices and potentially chaos within the system if we're not careful. Thomas Paine said, during the Revolutionary War, he said, these are the times that try men's soul. I think that we're in a similar period of time in the sense that there's an unease. I think there's a discontent across the land. People are coming more and more, not just people from the liberty movement, but everyday people within every aspect of my life. I see these people come into the office and they're worried. They're worried about our country. They're worried about what's going to happen. They're worried about the currency. They're worried about the debt. They're worried about we're a country that doesn't manufacture anything anymore. We're worried that our leaders tell us, go to the mall and spend your money and everything will be okay. People are seeing through that and people are worried. So I think there is an unease. I think the discontent is also seen in the Tea Party movement. People spontaneously showing up. In my little town of 50,000 people, we had 700 people show up for a Tea Party. And it wasn't Republican or Democrat organizers. These were regular folks that most of them were independents. Most of them were people who had not participated in the political process before. So there is a discontent out there. What we need to do is capture that, run candidates for office who will represent the people, and try to take back our government. My opponent in the Republican side is the Secretary of State. He's a career politician. He's a young man who's not done anything really other than run for political office. In fact, recently we've done pretty well in a poll against him, and we've only been doing this for 3 months, and he's been doing it for 8 years. So we really see that there is a discontent. I tell people that as I meet the Republican primary voter in Kentucky, I've yet to meet one voter who would have voted for the bank bailout. But the Republican leadership, over half of them voted for the bank bailout. So I think there's a disconnect. I think the Republican primary voter is ready for a different type of candidate, not a career politician. I'm a physician, I'm a small businessman, and I don't want to go into this for a living. I go into this because I'm worried about our country, worried about the debt, and worried about the repercussions that are coming. Yesterday we had what's called a money bomb, and we had over 5,000 people contribute money to our campaign. We raised $450,000 in 24 hours. This is phenomenal. It shows that the Liberty Movement is alive and well. We did this in 24 hours online, and we think we set a record for Kentucky. No other candidate in Kentucky has ever raised this much money online in a 24-hour period. It also brings us up to parity with the establishment candidate, and allows us to be considered to be a competitive force and a formidable candidate. I've come down here to Texas also, and we're having fundraisers in Texas. We will raise money from across the country as well as from Kentucky. We're also scheduling fundraisers in Kentucky, and we'll raise money within Kentucky as well. But the issues resonate throughout the country, and the issues of limited government and less taxation and less regulation, bringing the budget back into balance, looking at the Federal Reserve and saying we've got to audit the Federal Reserve. We need to know where they're spending the money, what they're doing it with. The Federal Reserve increased their asset sheet by $2 trillion, meaning they bought up all these loans. The Federal Reserve bought used car loans and bad home mortgages last year. 40% of what the Federal Reserve is buying right now, neither you nor I would purchase. Would you purchase your buddy's bad car loan, lives down the street from you? No way. But the Federal Reserve is doing this, and we don't even know how they're doing it because they won't let us audit the Federal Reserve. It's now 270 co-sponsors for auditing it, and yet we still don't have a vote. So we have to keep pushing on. The Liberty Movement needs more candidates. We need to keep calling and writing all our congressmen and senators to get the audit bill through. Recently, they've been talking about who they want to replace Bernanke with, or whether he'll get the job again. I think the discussion should be, let's don't replace him at all. And even if you didn't immediately abolish the Fed, abolish some of the powers of the Fed. Is there any reason why the Fed should set the day-to-day interest rate? I see the interest rate as kind of like insulin in the body. When you eat a big meal, your insulin rises, tamponades the blood sugar, and it brings it back to a maintenance level. We call that homeostasis. It's sort of an equilibrium that always finds its balance when the body's working properly. The economy's the same way. When it gets overheated and there's 100 new home builders building houses, the competition for money will drive the interest rate higher. The economy slows gradually a little bit, and then when it grows to a point, interest rates fall and the economy will pick back up again. But if you have the Federal Reserve make the interest rate zero, you get this artificial boom, and there is no check and balance.